Good morning, Michelle. Well, yes, yesterday the mayor of Johannesburg, Herman Mashaba, saying that there was some sabotage at that substation that caught fire on Monday afternoon. But of course, we're still waiting for the proof as to what exactly is telling him that this was sabotage. But also he has made reference to the fact that another substation, I don't know if you remember, Michelle, about 2 months ago in Pretoria, and over there it took the city of Tshwane about 2 weeks to eventually have it sorted, and it affected suburbs in the east of Pretoria, including some parts of Centurion. So a lot of people, including the mayor, saying, why is this happening at DA-led municipalities in the province? And of course, we still yet to get the proof. But right now, Michelle, I am outside Joburg Water offices. I was inside earlier today meeting with the MD, Mr. Mukwebo, and what he's told us is that behind the scenes there's a lot of work happening to try and sort the problem out, because of course it's been more than 30 hours. It's actually leading to 48 hours, with some residents, especially in the south of Johannesburg, not having water for about 48 hours. And he says there's a lot happening, and already right now actually we had to get out of the office because already he has his first meeting at 9 o'clock with some of the people that are handling what he says is actually a crisis, Michelle.
Maseko, I've just been tracking the story on social media, and a number of people have in fact tweeted that water has been restored to their residences. That's only in a few areas in Johannesburg. In terms of the numbers, do we have an idea of how many people are still affected? And more importantly, do we have an idea of when it will be sorted out?
Yes, we do, Michelle. In terms of Joburg Water, which actually supplies water to a large part of the city of Johannesburg, the MD, Mr. Mukwebo, saying it's actually half of the residents. He counted a lot of southern suburbs, including Kibble Park, Naturena, Lenasia, and also Soweto. And he says also there's also parts in the larger western area, which is mostly the Roodepoort area. You could count Velge, Heerwil, Strubens Valley. And he says where the residents that already have water from this morning, because the substation was properly fixed at 4 a.m. this morning, Michelle. He says most of the residents that already have water are actually in the western area. So those areas that are counted in, that I counted for you in the larger Roodepoort area, already have access to water this morning. But he also says there are areas in the south, including Lenasia and Naturena. Those residents there don't have any water. But he does also say, Michelle, that although it does take a while, because first officials and engineers rather have to fill up the reservoirs before they can open up those reservoirs to actually feed the taps. He says definitely by tomorrow all residents should have access to water, although that access might be interrupted here and there in order for them to properly stabilize the system.
I mean, if the situation isn't resolved by tomorrow, at what stage does Johannesburg Water then step in and provide perhaps water tankers to the areas that are the worst affected?
Well, Michelle, from Monday afternoon, the MD here saying they already were supplying some areas with water tankers, but he says it's a lot of megalitres of water that they actually supply to these areas in Johannesburg per day, and therefore some of the areas probably didn't get access to the water tankers on time. But he says those trucks are still out there today, and they will still be out there tomorrow. And as said earlier, there will be water supplied to the areas that don't have water today by tomorrow morning, but it will be interrupted in between if the supply is not stabilized, or rather the system is not stabilized. It's too dangerous, and therefore they will switch on the system on and off. But he also does say that residents should try using water sparingly, because that also determines how quickly the system is actually stabilized. So we are still on level 1 restrictions in the areas that have been affected.
All right, so you're outside Johannesburg Water, but this Eikenhof substation that caught fire 2 days ago, it's also left other areas without electricity. What's the situation there?
You're right, Michelle. A lot of areas, including, for instance, Alveda Park, close to Kibla Park in the south of Johannesburg, didn't have electricity for about 13 or actually more than 13 hours. A lot of these areas only getting access to electricity at around midnight last night. So there were a lot of those areas that didn't have electricity, but the city's electricity supplier, which is Joburg Electricity, saying that they do have electricity already supplied to a lot of those areas already, saying that it's very minimal, very small areas that don't have electricity yet, and if anyone doesn't have electricity, they should try and communicate it through Twitter or any other means, calling them to let them know that they are still affected. But of course, some of the areas, Eikenhof and, like I said, Alveda Park, they have electricity from midnight yesterday.
All right, great. Well, thanks very much for that update from our reporter, Masego Ratlaga.